These are some of the rhythms of Fanciulla. And there are many more. For Puccini and many other Italians who visited New York around the turn of the 20th century, America meant movement and life. Life that has rhythms, vitality, and activity. Puccini's sometime librettist, Ferdinando Fontana, came to New York in 1884 and he described New York Harbor as he sailed in. Quote, "Far away, near, behind, in front, on the right, on the left, is the steaming, panting, puffing, without rest, of thousands and thousands of smokestacks. For a moment you imagine you have before your eyes the great organ of Beelzebub, on which Satan, the great Kapellmeister, is playing some frenetic infernal symphonies, while all the devils, his followers and acolytes, blow their 100,000 breaths of boiling pitch into the bellows," unquote. Giuseppe Giacosa, one of Puccini's librettists for La Bohème, Tosca, and Madama Butterfly, visited New York a few years later in 1899 and wrote, quote, "Nowhere on earth is another expanse of water so completely surrounded by buildings, so resonant and echoing from every part to the other, so full of life, so diverse in its sights and movements, so imaginative, such a powerful engine for thought," unquote. And as Puccini himself told the Musical Digest in the year before he died, 1923, quote, "New York, what a marvelous city, activity, turbulence, life. Sometime or another I should like to return there, but how can I?" And of course he never did. But 13 years before that, Puccini did come to New York for the second time, now for the triumphal premiere of The Girl of the Golden West at the Metropolitan Opera, exactly 100 years ago in December 1910. Here's a copy of the immigration form that he had to fill out on board the George Washington. Just a second. No, not this one. I'm trying to get it in the frame where it's large enough for you to see it. It starts out with normal information: family name, given name, how old he is, sex, married or single, his occupation or calling, which is composer. Can he read and write? Yes. Nationality, race or people, country, and the city and town is Mailand, which is German for Milan, which seems to indicate to me he wasn't that good in English, I'm pretty sure he isn't, because he wrote to Sybil Seligman once, English is un lingua impossibile, an impossible language. Anyway, this is all pretty standard information, but on the next page, you can see they also ask him, just a second, I'll get it centered. Who paid the passage, whether he had a ticket or not, whether he had at least $50, whether he's ever been in the United States before, and et cetera, whether he's going to join a friend. But then it goes on to ask whether he's a polygamist, whether he's an anarchist, whether he's ever been in a hospital, or he's deformed or crippled, etc. And it also gives his height, weight, complexion, and so forth. No identifying marks, and so forth. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting to share with you all. So, despite the opera's initial success, this work never really caught on with the American public, unlike most of his other works. I believe that many of the elements of Fanciulla that we as Americans have found hardest to accept, the singing cowboys, the weeping homesick miners, the dancing, bump up against myths that are ingrained in our national consciousness from about a century of cowboy and Western films. These operatic characters are not the strong, silent cowboys who save the girl and ride off into the sunset following the Western frontier. They're emotional men who get saved by their fearless women and who ride into the sunrise. That is, they're going back east, away from the frontier. And I have to admit that I was subject to the same prejudice. I was working on Fanciulla during my dissertation, and I said, I just can't stand these Italian cowboys anymore. I have to take a break. So I went to the local shopping mall to do my grocery shopping, and it was Cowboy Day. This was when I was living in Italy, and every single person in that shopping mall was speaking Italian, wearing a cowboy outfit. So I couldn't get away from it, and it's been following me ever since. But in fact, weeping and dancing and getting saved by fearless women who ride into the sunrise and so forth is much closer to reality, as chronicled by diaries and letters written by J.S. Holliday, William Perkins, and William Downey, among others. Many of the more familiar accounts that we have of the gold rush period in California, though, were furnished by Bret Harte, who worked at times as a miner, a teacher, a messenger, and a journalist. As a journalist, Bret Harte was seemingly unable to separate his personal opinions from reporting the news, and he editorialized about a terrible massacre of Native Americans, for which he got rewarded with death threats and a quick departure from his job. So he began to write literature, which was good for us. One of his characters is a spunky woman named Miggles, and Miggles owns the Polka Saloon, which was actually a real San Francisco tavern, and where apparently people like to dance the polka. And this story was first published in 1870. 35 years later, David Belasco brought us another spunky Wild West woman who owned a polka saloon, but now her name was Minnie. And I've often wondered if Belasco combined the names of Miggles with that of Annie Oakley, who was well known to everybody at the time and certainly would be an image that he would hold in his head. I'm just guessing. I don't know if that's true or not. Bret Harte left us many poems and stories from this period, and dance seems to be a central element. His well-known poem, The Luck of Roaring Camp, begins in 3/4 time. Waltz in, ye little kids, and gather round my knee, and drop them books and first pot hooks, and hear a yarn from me. This is about a spelling bee for tough-as-nails Western types who are getting their, quote, education, unquote. And in this spelling bee, the word that trips up Pistol Joe is, what else? Rhythm. Puccini's Fanciulla is also full of dance rhythms. We hear the waltz, the polka, and the bolero. In the score, the bolero is marked alla spagnola and appears several times as a motivic marker for Latin characters. That's what the last one I just played. Fanciulla's dances could have been inspired by the incidental music that Puccini heard in New York in 1907 when he went to hear the Belasco play, Girl of the Golden West, and Rose of the Rancho. Both of them are set in the same period. Audiences of those two plays would have heard two waltzes, a polka, two boleros, a manzanillo, a habanera, shades of Carmen, and a cachucha. Gilbert and Sullivan fans may remember that the cachucha also makes its appearance in The Gondoliers. And also, some of the tunes from that incidental dance music in the Belasco plays might also have served as musical models for Puccini's melodies. For instance, the second full measure of the play's polka in G major, I think, is strikingly similar to Puccini's theme associated with the polka saloon, this time not in G major but in G minor, as you can see in example 1. This is the Belasco version. It's this section, which is similar, I think, to this. Puccini could also have looked to the trio section of the play's polka music, the same tune, a rising stepwise fifth, as his theme for the waltz in Fanciulla. This is your example 2. However, it is not only the recognizable dance rhythms that give Fanciulla its metric vitality. As Michele Girardi has written, quote, "The ever-changing rhythm becomes a prominent protagonist, reflecting the onstage situation and the crudeness of the gestures," unquote. Puccini gave a lot of thought to rhythmic patterns, as we can see in a sketch in example 3, which you don't have actually in your handout, it's just on screen, which is housed at the Museo Puccini at Torre del Lago. At this point in the drama, in Act 3, the voices of the minors chime in mostly without specified pitch. Yet Puccini has precisely notated the length of each exclamation on plain paper without staff lines. I would like to thank Simonetta Puccini, who is not here at the moment, for permission to reproduce this page. It also appears in my article on the Fanciulla 100 website. Moscow Karner also mentions having seen some of Puccini's rhythmic sketches for this opera that showed experimentation with syncopated and dotted figures. Puccini aspires to rhythmic mimesis when he writes that the rhythm in the first act, when the post arrives, should imitate a horse's gallop. That sounds like this. I'm going to add a little percussive sound effect too. Yeah, I'm multi-talented. And a sketch housed at the Beinecke Library at Yale University, which is in your next example, but again, you don't have it, it's just up here. I was just nervous about reproduction. I'll getting sued. But Puccini works out the rhythm for depicting the moment in Act 2 when Johnson re-enters Minnie's cabin after being shot. He's lurching and stumbling. What it says there, it's very hard to read, I know, his handwriting, but he's saying, colpo revolver interno, allegro moderato, un po' agitato, movimento irregolare, traballamento del ferito, which means revolver shot off stage, allegro moderato, a little agitated, un po' agitato, irregular movement, staggering from the wound. So he's specifying that this should be irregular. Now, the rhythm in this sketch actually sounds like this. The final version became this. As you can hear, both are very irregular, and it's apparent in both versions. What's interesting, I think, about the final version is that it's a slight variant, a slowing down of the so-called cakewalk rhythm that has been heard earlier and somewhat associated with Johnson. The cakewalk rhythm sounds like this. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Da, 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 da. And here you have the slower version. Puccini had direct associations of rhythm with physical sensation, which is also made clear in his offhand comment to the New York Times after Fanciulla's premiere. Explaining how nervous he was, he told them, quote, "My heart was beating like the double basses in the card scene, where there are rapid 16th notes." This sounds like this. In his wonderful book, Puccini Interprete da se stesso by Luigi Ricci, which he claims reports the composer's own interpretive practice, Ricci writes that indeed this moment, quote, "in this moment, quote, the pulsation of Minnie's poor heart is depicted," unquote. This particular scene is a very early example of non-determinacy, as Puccini instructs the double basses to continue playing the pattern as long as the poker game requires. He writes, seguitando il movimento secondo le esigenze del giuoco, and just keep playing as the game goes on. I wonder if John Cage knew about this. Puccini also experiments in Fanciulla with using multiple simultaneous meters. He only does this in his early versions and drafts. In the Lehman continuity draft, which is at the Morgan Library, at the point in Act 1 where we hear Jake Wallace's song offstage, as Alan Atlas has noted, the vocal line is written in 4/8, but the accompaniment is written in 6/8. And in the final version of the second act, where Minnie sings resta, 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 it sounds in triple meter, but it is written in duple. According to Luigi Ricci's account of this section, Puccini told him, "I would have wanted to write the orchestra in 2/4 and the voice in 3/4, but this notation is not part of my writing system. Such a notation does not exist in any of my operas, so to less informed audience members, it could seem like a pose." What I find interesting about that is that he assumes the audience members would look at the score. And I'm not sure that would happen today, but let me play this section for you. So it starts out in the regular 2 feeling, so I'll play a little of that, and then it moves into this 3 feeling. In Fanciulla, we also find unusual meters, such as the marking 5-2 in Act 2 when Minnie gets her first kiss from Johnson, and many odd phrase lengths, such as the 3-bar units during the chase scene in Act 3. Beethoven would have called this ritmo di 3 battute, as he did in the Ninth Symphony. We call it, at least some of us call it, triple hypermeter. I'll play a little of that. It's unusual because normally we hear in 4-bar phrases. So I'm going to show you what it might have sounded like if I had written this. 2, 4. No, it's much more boring. In Act 1 of Fanciulla, the Sheriff Jack Rance confesses his love to Minnie and wants to marry her, conveniently forgetting about his wife back home. The text and translation you have in example 5A. In this aria, as we can see in example 5B, if you turn in your handout, if you start counting from the downbeats, the first musical grouping has 4 beats, and the next one has 7, for a total of 11 beats. This is highly unusual. Now I'm counting beats, not measures, because the meter keeps changing between 2/8 and 4/8, between 2 beats and 4 beats, so I'm just counting the beats. After this 11-beat section comes 3 sections that have more normal groups of 8 beats, and these are followed by a final section of, again, 4 + 7, and the final section has 7 beats, and then at the very end there's a 3-beat area marked lentamente with rallentando, which really doesn't have any more of a metrical feeling. That sort of gets destroyed. So the larger picture is that the outer sections are metrically unstable, while the inner sections are stable. Now the tonal content of this aria is also odd. Almost every phrase reaches a stable tonic in the middle and then moves to an unstable dominant at the end. So it moves from consonance to dissonance, the opposite of the norm. So you'll be able to hear in a few moments how the dominants, these unresolved dominants, create a feeling of something unresolved, something left hanging. So in essence here, both the meter and the harmony are the reverse of the normal. And in effect, I think this is a portrait of someone turned inside out, of someone so torn up with love and unrequited love and passion that he's lost it. And you get this very strange feeling listening to this aria, which we're going to hear right now, sung by BU student Jonathan Cole. And it ends like that, just hanging. I want to also mention that Jonathan learned this in about 10 minutes. He had never sung it before, so thank you so much. In this opera, there's also many, syncopation and dotted notes are also in evidence throughout Fanciulla, and there are, as we've heard, and there are many hemiolas, which are groupings of 3 when you expect groupings of 2. These are not to be confused with hemorrhoids. For instance, at the opening of Act 2, which you can see in example 6, first you hear 2s and then 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All of the examples that I've mentioned are examples of metric dissonance, which occurs when you have conflicting patterns of rhythm or meter. It's one of the facets of Puccini's modernism, which came into full flower with this work. Conceivably, Puccini was encouraged to such heights of metric complexity, not just by the many dance themes he had heard in the Belasco plays, but also by the transcriptions of Native American songs that he owned. He had copies of Alice Fletcher's Indian Story and Song for North America and Natalie Curtis's The Indians book, which are extant today in the Museo Puccini at Torre del Lago. Again, I'd like to thank Simonetta Puccini for providing images of these books, the covers of which, images of the covers are on our website, Fanciulla 100. In the Fletcher book, we find, for example, the meter of the Arapaho ghost dance song transcribed with 5-bar phrases, and the Pawnee lullaby, Kawas, Thy Baby is Crying, shows alternating 6/8 and 9/8 meters. The Curtis collection also contains many examples of such indirect metric dissonance, such as the transcription of the Pawnee Kizaka Woman's Song of Rejoicing that alternates 2/8 and 3/8. But how should we consider the so-called cakewalk rhythm, the syncopated rhythm that has been linked by several writers with ragtime, and thus with that genre's African-American roots? The cakewalk rhythm is simply ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Let's all try it. Ready? Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Good. Remember that because I'm going to play it in a lot of different pieces. Such a reference is considered completely out of place in this opera because it's considered a ragtime feature. And since no African Americans appear in this opera, it's usually associated with them, and so it seems particularly unusual, and it's very much linked to Johnson, the hero, who's also known as Ramirez, and so he's either Mexican or white, but he's definitely not black. And many writers have made this connection with the cakewalk rhythm with him, including Michele Girardi, Alan Atlas, and Linda Fairchild. Linda Fairchild goes further, however, claiming, quote, "The hot rhythm of Johnson's musical signature unmasks him by evoking such coon song stereotypes as thief, killer, dandy, sexual predator, and educated fool," unquote. Yet, Puccini, despite his interest in this once popular African-American genre, told the Evening Mail, and I quote, "There isn't a coon song in the opera," unquote. And although this rhythm appears at Johnson's entrance, Annie Randall and Rosalind Davis point out that Ashby's appearance is also accompanied by a syncopative motive, and that this rhythmic pattern seems to mark, quote, "an aspect of Western American identity rather than symbolize a single character," unquote. In reality, Puccini found this rhythm in all three of the sources that all types of sources he consulted, in the Native American music, in the Latino music, and in the European music. Three examples of this rhythm appear in Puccini's copy of the Curtis Book of Native American Melodies, which you can see in example 7. Remember how it goes? Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Second one. And the last one. Puccini also heard this music heard this rhythm in the incidental music to the two Belasco plays that he attended in 1907. The first of which, the music for The Girl of the Golden West, was composed by William First. And you have these in example 8. This is really not great music, but. I warned you. The second one. Third one. The incidental music collection for Belasco's Rosa the Rancho, the other play he saw in New York, also includes the cakewalk rhythm. This time in a published piece, it happens two places, one in the entr'acte for Act 3, number 4, and in a published piece called the Manzanillo Danza Mexicana, which was a published piece of music composed by A.G. Robin in a habanera style. This is in example 9. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And the other one. think I could get a job in a bar after this. In the end, we might wonder why Puccini gave so much attention to the rhythmic and metrical aspects of Fanciulla. Perhaps it was because these motions, for him, were extensions of emotions. Or perhaps, as the composer himself said, our inner metronome is the heart. Thank you.